The alarm screamed through the command center of Alteria Prime. Red warning lights painted the walls in blood-colored shadows as Commander Zara Thorne stared at the tactical display. 10,000 enemy ships hung in space around her world like a swarm of deadly insects. "How many do we have left?" she asked her communications officer. 212 ships still responding, Commander," Lieutenant Vex replied, his voice shaking. "We lost another squadron 5 minutes ago." Zara closed her eyes for a moment. When the day started, they had 800 ships defending their home system. The Vorthak Empire had come without warning, dropping out of hyperspace like death itself. Now her people were dying, and she could do nothing to stop it. "Sir, incoming transmission from Admiral Valon," the communications officer called out. The main screen flickered to life, showing Admiral Kex Valon's face. Burns covered half of his features and smoke drifted behind him on the bridge of his flagship. "Zara, we cannot hold them much longer," he said, his words coming out in gasps. "They have weapons we have never seen before. Our shields mean nothing. To them, our weapons barely scratch their hulls." "What are your orders, Admiral?" Zara asked, though she feared the answer. "Prepare the evacuation ships. Get as many civilians off-world as possible." Valon's image shook as another explosion rocked his vessel. "The defense fleet will buy you time, but not much." Through the command center windows, Zara could see fires burning in the city below. Vorthak fighters had broken through the orbital defenses and were attacking civilian targets. The peaceful gardens of Alteria Prime, famous throughout the galaxy for their beauty, now burned under alien fire. "Admiral, we sent distress calls to every world in the Federation. Surely someone will come to help us," Zara said, though hope was dying in her chest. Valen's laugh was bitter. "The Vorthak hit all our worlds at the same time, Commander. Kalara fell yesterday. Nexus Prime is under siege. We are alone." The transmission cut off as another wave of enemy fire struck the Admiral's ship. Zara watched the tactical display as his vessel's signal went dark. Admiral Kex Valon, defender of 3 star systems and hero of the border wars, was gone. "Commander, we are receiving a surrender demand from the Vorthak fleet," Lieutenant Vex reported. "Put it through," Zara said, the screen filled with the horrible face of General Morg Blackfang, Supreme Commander of the Vorthak Invasion Force. His shark-like teeth gleamed as he spoke in his guttural language, which the computer translated into Alterian. "People of Alteria Prime, your pathetic fleet is broken. Your worlds burn at my command. Surrender now and some of you may live as slaves. Resist further and every living thing on your planet dies." Zara stepped forward. "General Blackfang, we are a peaceful people. We have done nothing to provoke this attack. Why do you bring war to our worlds?" The Vorthak general's eyes glowed, red with amusement. "Because you exist, and existence is a crime against the strong. Your Federation spreads across the galaxy like a disease, preaching peace and cooperation. The universe belongs to warriors, not to weak farmers and merchants." "We will not surrender," Zara said, her voice steady despite the fear in her heart. "Then, you will die. I give you 1 hour to reconsider. After that, my fleet will turn your pretty world into glass." The transmission ended. Zara turned to her staff officers. "Begin full planetary evacuation. Military transports first, then civilian. Ships. Send our fastest courier ship to the Outer Rim with a complete record of what happened here." "Where should they go, Commander?" asked her aide. "Anywhere. Everywhere. Someone in the galaxy needs to know that the Vorthak Empire has started a war of extermination." As her officers worked frantically to organize the evacuation, Zara walked to the great window that looked out over the capital city. Millions of Alterians lived in the gleaming towers below. They were scientists, artists, teachers, and healers. They had never hurt anyone. They had spent centuries building a civilization based on knowledge and peace. Now enemy ships circled, overhead like vultures waiting to destroy everything her people had built. "Commander, the long-range communications array is still operational," Lieutenant Vex called out. "Should we send one final distress call?" Zara nodded. "Broadcast on all frequencies. Let the whole galaxy know what the Vorthak Empire is doing. Maybe someone somewhere will care enough to remember us." As the message went out into the void, Zara watched the first evacuation ships lift off from the spaceports below. They were too few and too slow. Most of her people would not escape in time. The tactical display showed Vorthak ships moving into bombardment positions. In 53 minutes, the hour would be up. Then the killing would begin in earnest. Far away, in the darkness between the bow stars, a small human exploration vessel named the UES Horizon picked up the Alterian distress signal. Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair, listening to the desperate plea for help from a species he had never heard of. "Sir, what are your orders?" asked his tactical officer. Morrison stared at the message playing on his screen. An entire civilization was about to die, and his ship with its crew of 127 was the only one close enough to do anything about it. "Set course for the Kepler system," he said quietly. "Maximum speed." "Sir, we are just an exploration vessel. We have no weapons except point defense systems." "I know," Morrison replied, "but we cannot let this happen without trying to help." As the Horizon changed course toward the dying Alterian worlds, Commander Zara Thorne watched the countdown timer on her screen. 41 minutes remained before General Blackfang would make good on his promise to destroy her world. She had done everything she could. The rest was up to fate, and to whatever gods might still care about justice in a universe that seemed to belong to the strong. The UES Horizon dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge, watching the tactical display fill with red dots. Enemy ships swarmed through the system like angry hornets. "Dear God," whispered Lieutenant Emma Clark, his tactical officer. "There must be thousands of them." 8,743 ships detected, Captain," reported Chief Engineer Sam Parker from his station. "All of them armed for heavy combat." Morrison gripped the arms of his command chair. The Horizon was an exploration vessel, built for science missions and first contact situations. It carried only basic defensive weapons and a crew trained for discovery, not war. "Sir, we are picking up massive explosions from the fourth planet," Clark said. "The defenders are being wiped out." On the main screen, Morrison watched as enemy fire rained down on what had once been a beautiful blue world. Cities burned like candles in the darkness. The orbital defense platforms were nothing but debris floating in space. "Captain, incoming transmission," called Communications Officer Pete Johnson. "It is not from the attacking fleet." "Put it through." The screen flickered, showing the face of a being Morrison had never seen before. She looked almost human, but her skin was pale blue and her eyes were larger than any human's. Burns covered part of her face and sparks flew from damaged equipment behind her. "Unknown vessel. This is Commander Zara Thorne of the Alterian Federation Defense Force," she said in a voice filled with pain and exhaustion. "Please identify yourself. Are you here to help us or to watch us die?" Morrison stepped forward. "Commander Thorne, this is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earthship Horizon. We received your distress call and came as fast as we could. Alien Commander's eyes widened. "Earth? We have never heard of your world. How many ships do you have? When will your fleet arrive?" Morrison felt his heart sink. "Commander, we are alone. The Horizon is the only Earthship in this system." Thorne stared at him for a long moment. Then she laughed, but there was no joy in the sound. "One ship. The universe sends me one ship to fight an empire. Commander, we need to get you and your people out of here," Morrison said. "How many civilians can we evacuate?" "My ship can hold maybe 200 people at most," Thorne replied. "There are 40 million Alterians still alive on this planet." The communication channel filled with static as another explosion rocked Thorne's command center. When the image cleared, she was bleeding from a cut on her forehead. "Commander, we are coming to get you," Morrison said. "Send us your coordinates. Captain Morrison, your ship will be destroyed the moment you enter orbit. The Vorthak have weapons that can tear apart a starship in seconds." Morrison looked at his crew. Every face on the bridge showed the same determination he felt in his own heart. They had traveled across the galaxy and found an entire civilization being murdered. They could not just watch it happen. "Dr. Rivera, prepare for first contact protocols," Morrison ordered. "Clark, plot a course to the planet, best possible speed." Dr. Alex Rivera, the ship's xenobiologist, moved to his station. Captain, we need to establish proper communication and cultural understanding before we can help them effectively. Doctor, there is no time for standard procedures, Morrison replied. These people are dying right now. The Horizon raced toward Alteria Prime, dodging debris from destroyed ships and avoiding the notice of enemy patrols. Morrison watched the tactical display as they approached the burning world. Captain, I am detecting a small group of Alterian ships trying to break through the enemy blockade, Clark reported. They are carrying civilians, but Vorthak fighters are closing in. Take us there, Morrison ordered. Full power to engines and shields. The Horizon dove toward the fleeing Alterian vessels. The refugee ships were old and slow, packed with families trying to escape the destruction of their world. Behind them came sleek Vorthak fighters, their weapons charging for the kill. Fire all defensive batteries, Morrison commanded. Protect those ships. The Horizon's small laser cannons opened fire, striking the lead Vorthak fighter. The enemy ship exploded, in a ball of flame. The other fighters turned toward this new threat, their weapons blazing. Shields down to 60%, Parker called out as enemy fire hammered the human ship. Hull damage on decks 7 and 8. Morrison opened a channel to the Alterian refugee ships. This is Captain Morrison. Follow us out of the system. We will cover your escape. Human vessel, you are badly outnumbered, came the reply from the lead Alterian ship. Why are you risking your lives for strangers? Because it is the right thing to do, Morrison answered simply. The fighting continued. For 20 minutes as the small human ship battled a dozen enemy fighters, the Horizon took heavy damage, but her crew fought with desperate courage. Finally, the refugee ships reached the edge of the system and jumped to hyperspace. Dr. Rivera, open a channel to Commander Thorne, Morrison ordered as his ship limped, away from the battle zone. When Thorne's face appeared on screen, Morrison could see tears running down her blue cheeks. Captain Morrison, you saved 3,000 of my people. I do not know how to thank you. Commander, we need to talk. My government needs to know what is happening here. Can you send a representative with us back to Earth? Thorne nodded. I will come myself. But Captain, you must understand what you are asking. Earth would be declaring war on the most powerful military force in the galaxy. The Vorthak Empire has conquered 50 star systems. They have never been defeated. Morrison looked around his damaged bridge. His crew was bloodied but unbowed. They had faced impossible odds and saved lives. It was what humans did when confronted with evil. Commander, how long would it take us to reach Earth and return with a fleet, he asked. 3 months if your ships are as fast as ours, Thorne replied. Will your people last that long? Thorne was quiet for a moment. Some of us will survive. We will hide in the outer planets and fight as long as we can. But Captain, you need to know what you are facing. The Vorthak do not just conquer worlds, they destroy everything that makes a civilization worth living for. Morrison nodded grimly. Then we better hurry. Dr. Rivera, prepare quarters for our guest. We are going home to start a war. The emergency session of the Earth Senate began at dawn. Admiral Lisa Carter stood before the assembled representatives, her uniform crisp despite having been awake for 36 hours straight. Behind her, a massive screen showed images from the Kepler system, burning cities, destroyed fleets, and millions of refugees fleeing their homes. Ladies and gentlemen, we face a choice that will define humanity's place in the galaxy, Carter said, her voice carrying across the silent chamber. An entire civilization is being wiped out while we debate. The Alterian Federation never hurt anyone. They are scientists, artists, and peaceful farmers. Now they are being slaughtered by an empire that sees peace as weakness. Senator Maria Gonzalez stood up from her seat. Admiral Carter, I understand the moral argument, but we are talking about sending our fleet across the galaxy to fight an enemy we know nothing about. How many human lives are you willing to sacrifice for aliens? We just met? Carter turned to face the senator directly. How many lives is freedom worth, Senator? How many lives is the right to exist worth? The Vorthak Empire has conquered 50 star systems. They kill everyone who will not become their slaves. If we do nothing now, how long before they find Earth? Commander Zara Thorne stepped forward, from where she had been waiting at the side of the chamber. The Alterian officer still wore bandages from her injuries, but she stood straight and proud. "Senators of Earth, I have seen what the Vorthak do to peaceful worlds," she said through the translation device Dr. Rivera had built for her. "They do not just take our planets. They destroy our libraries. They burn our art. They kill our children. For sport. This is not war as you might understand it. This is extermination." The chamber fell silent as the weight of her words sank in. Admiral Carter activated the display again, showing tactical information about the Vorthak fleet. "The enemy has approximately 9,000 ships remaining in the Kepler system," she continued. "They are well armed, but follow predictable attack patterns. Our intelligence analysis suggests they have never fought an enemy that uses our type of mobile tactics." General Ryan Brooks, commander of the Space Marine Corps, stood up from his seat in the military section. "Admiral, what are you proposing exactly?" "I am proposing that we deploy the Grand Fleet," Carter replied. "Every available warship, every trained crew, every Marine we can put on a transport. We hit them hard and fast before they can adapt to our fighting style." Senator Gonzalez shook her head. "The Grand Fleet has never been deployed outside our own solar system. We would be risking everything on one battle." "Senator, with respect, we are already risking everything," Carter shot back. "If the Vorthak Empire continues to expand, they will eventually find us. Better to fight them now on our terms with allies who know their weaknesses." Captain Jake Morrison, still wearing his damaged uniform from the rescue mission, stepped forward. "Senators, I have fought these enemies. I have seen what they do to civilians. My crew and I held off a dozen of their fighters with one exploration ship. Our military vessels are stronger and faster than anything I saw in their fleet." The debate continued for hours. Some senators worried about the cost. Others questioned whether humanity should involve itself in alien conflicts. But as the morning wore on, the images from the Kepler system spoke louder than any argument. Finally, Senator Gonzalez called for a vote. "All in favor of authorizing military intervention in the Kepler system?" The chamber filled with the sound of electronic voting. When the tally appeared on the main screen, Admiral Carter allowed herself a small smile. The vote was not even close. "Motion carries by a margin of 4-1, announced the Senate President. "Admiral Carter, you have unlimited authorization to deploy whatever forces you deem necessary." Within hours, Luna Command became a hive of activity. Admiral Carter stood in the main operations center, watching as her staff coordinated the largest military deployment in human history. "Status report," she called out. Captain Tony Mitchell, leader of the elite fighter squadrons, stepped forward. "Ma'am, we have 2,847 ships ready for deployment, 12 battle carrier groups, 43 destroyer squadrons, and the dreadnought UES Defiance." "Ground forces?" Carter asked. General Brooks consulted his tablet. 50,000 Space Marines loaded and ready. We have assault ships, heavy armor, and enough supplies for 6 months of operations. Timeline? The fleet can depart in 72 hours, replied Chief of Staff Colonel Beth Murphy. Travel time to Kepler system is estimated at 3 months using our fastest hyperspace drives. Carter nodded grimly. 3 months might be too long. According to Commander Thorne, most Alterian worlds would fall within weeks, but it was the best they could do. "What about weapons development?" Carter asked. Dr. Frank Stone, head of military research, stepped forward with excitement in his eyes. "Admiral, we have been analyzing the Alterian data about Vorthak technology. Their ships have powerful shields but weak armor underneath. We have modified our missiles to use a 2-stage attack. The first stage overloads their shields. The second stage punches through their hull. How effective will it be?" "Our computer model suggests a 60% increase in damage per missile," Stone replied. "We are also developing new tactics based on what Captain Morrison observed. The Vorthak fight in rigid formations. They do not adapt well to chaos." Admiral Carter walked to the main display showing the assembled fleet. Thousands of ships hung in space around Earth and Luna, their crews preparing for the longest journey in human history. These were not just warships, but the hopes and dreams of an entire species. "Commander Thorne," Carter said, turning to the Alterian officer. How many of your people are still alive? Perhaps 20 million across all our worlds, Thorne replied quietly, down from 800 million before the invasion began. Carter clenched her fists. In just a few weeks, the Vorthak had murdered almost an entire civilization. It was genocide on a scale that made her sick with rage. Admiral, incoming message from the Outer Rim, called Communications Officer Dan Kelly. Another human exploration ship has reported finding Vorthak forces attacking the Centauri trade routes. Carter's blood ran cold. The enemy was already expanding beyond Alterian space. Soon they would be at the borders of human territory. Change of plans, she announced to the assembled staff. We deploy in 24 hours. Send word to all ship commanders. This is no longer just about saving the Alterians. This is about stopping the Vorthak before they bring their war to Earth. The human Grand Fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system in perfect battle formation. Admiral Lisa Carter stood on the bridge of the dreadnought UES Defiance, watching as 2,800 ships spread out across space like a deadly net. My God, whispered her communications officer as the tactical display updated. The system is completely occupied. Vorthak ships filled the space around every planet. Massive orbital platforms hung above the Alterian worlds, their weapons pointed down at the surface. The enemy had turned the entire system into a fortress. Sir, we are being scanned by enemy sensors, reported the tactical officer. They know. We are here. Carter nodded. Open a channel to all ships. This is Admiral Carter to Grand Fleet. We came here to stop a genocide. Today we finish what the Vorthak started. All ships engage at will. The largest space battle in galactic history began with a thunderclap of weapons fire. Human missiles streaked across the void, their two-stage warheads punching through Vorthak, shields and tearing into enemy hulls. The modified weapons worked exactly as Dr. Stone had promised. General Morg Blackfang watched the battle from his command ship, his red eyes wide with shock. In 30 years of conquest, he had never seen ships fight like the humans did. They did not form neat battle lines or follow predictable attack patterns. Instead, they swarmed like angry wasps, striking from every direction at once. How many ships do they have? He snarled at his tactical officer. Nearly 3,000, General. But they are smaller than our vessels. We should be able to crush them with superior firepower. Blackfang was not so sure. Already he had lost 200 ships and the human fleet seemed to be everywhere at once. Their fighters moved faster than anything he had ever seen, diving through his formations and disappearing before his gunners could target them. Captain Tony Mitchell led his fighter squadron in a screaming dive toward a Vorthak battleship. The enemy vessel was 3 times the size of any human ship, its hull bristling with weapons. But Mitchell had studied the Alterian intelligence reports. He knew where to hit. Blue Squadron, target the shield generators on the port side, he called, over the radio. Green Squadron, take the starboard generators. Once their shields are down, we go for the engine room. The human fighters danced around the massive enemy ship like tiny birds attacking a giant. Their lasers found the weak points Commander Thorne had identified overloading the Vorthak shield systems. Within minutes, the battleship was defenseless. This is Mitchell to all fighters. Target is naked. Go for the kill. Missiles and laser fire poured into the enemy vessel. Secondary explosions rippled along its hull as fuel lines and ammunition stores caught fire. The great ship broke apart in a flower of flame, taking 4,000 Vorthak warriors with it. The surface of Alteria Prime. Commander Zara Thorne watched the battle through her command bunker's few remaining sensors. For 3 months, she and the surviving Alterian forces had hidden in caves and underground shelters, fighting a hopeless guerrilla war against the occupying army. Now the sky was full of human ships, and hope burned in her heart for the first time since the invasion began. Commander, incoming transmission from the human fleet, called her communications officer. Admiral Carter's face appeared on the cracked display screen. Commander Thorne, this is Admiral Carter. We are beginning ground operations to liberate your worlds. Can your forces coordinate with our Marines? Admiral, we have 15,000 fighters left across all our remaining worlds, Thorne replied. Most of our heavy weapons are destroyed, but we know where the Vorthak have set up their bases. Understood. General Brooks is deploying 50,000 Marines to retake your cities. Mark all enemy positions for our orbital bombardment. The DU. Liberation of Alteria Prime began with fire from the sky. Human warships in orbit targeted every Vorthak strongpoint that Commander Thorne's forces had identified. Precision strikes destroyed enemy bases while leaving Alterian buildings untouched. General Ryan Brooks led the first wave of Marines down to the planet's surface. His drop pods slammed into the ground outside the capital city, disgorging soldiers in powered armor who immediately began advancing on enemy positions. The Vorthak had never fought humans in ground combat before. They expected their enemies to form battle lines and advance slowly, the way most species fought. Instead, the human Marines moved in small groups, using cover and communication to outflank and overwhelm isolated enemy units. Squad leaders, report. Brooks called over the tactical network as his forces pushed deeper into the city. Bravo Squad has secured the spaceport. Enemy resistance was lighter than expected. Charlie Squad is moving on the government district. The Vorthak are retreating toward their command center. Delta Squad has linked up with Alterian resistance fighters. They are guiding us to civilian shelter areas. The battle for the city lasted 18 hours. When it was over, the Vorthak occupation force had been completely destroyed. Alterian civilians emerged from their hiding places to find human Marines standing guard in their streets. In space, the battle was turning into a rout. General Blackfang's fleet, which had seemed invincible just days before, was being systematically destroyed by human tactics they could not understand or counter. "General, we have lost over half our ships," his tactical officer reported, fear clear in his voice. "The humans are using weapons and strategies we have never encountered." Blackfang stared at the tactical display in growing horror. His massive battleships, designed to crush enemy fleets through superior firepower, were being picked apart by swarms of smaller human vessels that struck fast and disappeared before he could respond. "Order all remaining ships to retreat to the outer system," he commanded. "We will regroup and—" "Sir, the humans are jamming our communications. Most of our ships cannot receive the retreat order." It was over. In less than 3 days, the Vorthak Empire's greatest fleet had been broken by an enemy they had never heard of until this week. Blackfang watched his flagship's main screen as human fighters closed in for the final attack. Admiral Carter received the damage reports with grim satisfaction. The Grand Fleet had lost 112 ships and 8,000 crew members. It was a heavy price, but they had saved an entire civilization. "Admiral, General Blackfang is requesting permission to surrender," reported her communications officer. Carter looked out at the burning wreckage of the Vorthak fleet. "Tell him we will accept nothing less than unconditional surrender and complete withdrawal from all Alterian worlds." "Ma'am, he agrees to your terms." The Kepler system fell silent as the guns stopped firing. For the first time in months, Alterian children could look up at the sky without fear. The genocide was over, and the galaxy had learned that humanity would not stand by while innocent people were murdered. General Morg Blackfang stood in the surrender chamber aboard the UES Defiance, his massive frame dwarfed by the human guards around him. Admiral Lisa Carter sat across from him at a simple metal table, her face showing no emotion as she read the terms of surrender. "The Vorthak Empire will withdraw all forces from Alterian space immediately," she said in a clear voice. "All Alterian prisoners will be released unharmed. Your empire will pay reparations for the damage you have caused. And you will never again attack any member of what we are calling the Galactic Protection Alliance." Blackfang's red eyes burned with hatred, but he was beaten and he knew it. "You have won this battle, human. But the Empire controls 50 star systems. We have millions of warriors. This war is not over." Carter leaned forward slightly. "General, let me explain something to you. We destroyed your finest fleet in 3 days. We liberated your conquered worlds in less than a week. If your empire makes the mistake of threatening peaceful civilizations again, we will not stop at the Kepler system. We will hunt down every Vorthak ship in the galaxy until your kind learns that genocide has consequences." The Vorthak general signed the surrender documents with shaking claws. As he was led away to a prison transport, Carter allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. The galaxy's worst nightmare had just learned that humanity would not tolerate the murder of innocent people. Captain Jake Morrison stood in the main square of Alteria Prime's capital city, watching as crowds of grateful civilians surrounded human marines. Children who had hidden in caves for months now played in the streets again. The burned buildings were being cleared away, and construction crews from both species worked together to rebuild what the Vorthak had destroyed. Commander Zara Thorne approached him, her uniform clean for the first time since the invasion began. "Captain Morrison, I wanted to thank you personally. If you had not answered our distress call, my people would be extinct." Morrison shook his head. "Commander, we just did what any decent species would do. We could not let the Vorthak commit genocide while we watched." "That is where you are wrong," Thorne replied sadly. "We sent distress calls to dozens of civilizations. Most ignored us completely. Others said they were sorry but could not risk war with the Vorthak Empire. Only humanity came to help strangers they had never met. 3 weeks later, representatives from across the galaxy gathered on Alteria Prime for the founding of the Galactic Protection Alliance. The Great Assembly Hall, rebuilt by human and Alterian engineers working together, buzzed with conversation in dozens of languages. Admiral Carter stood at the podium, looking out at delegates from 37 different worlds. "Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of all kinds, we gather today because the galaxy has learned an important lesson. Evil succeeds when good people do nothing. The Vorthak Empire nearly wiped out an entire civilization while the rest of us looked the other way." She gestured toward Commander Thorne, who sat in the front row wearing the new uniform of the Alliance Defense Force. "The Alterian Federation has agreed to share their advanced technology with all Alliance members. In return, humanity has committed to providing military protection for any peaceful civilization threatened by aggressive empires." A delegate from the Crystalline Confederacy stood up. "Admiral Carter, what gives humanity the right to police the galaxy? Your species has only been traveling between stars for 200 years. Carter's response was firm but respectful. "We do not claim the right to police anyone. We claim the responsibility to protect those who cannot protect themselves. The Vorthak Empire has shown us what happens when military power is used only for conquest and murder. Humanity chooses to use our strength differently." Captain Morrison, now wearing the rank insignia of Earth's first galactic ambassador, stepped forward. "The Alliance is not about human control. It is about cooperation between species who believe that civilization is worth protecting. Any world that shares those values is welcome to join us." The vote to establish the Alliance was unanimous. Even species that chose not to join immediately expressed support for the organization's goals. The galaxy had seen what happened when bullies were allowed to run free. Over the following months, the Alliance grew rapidly. The Tenthari Collective, whose merchant fleets had been terrorized by Vorthak raiders, joined after seeing human warships escort their trading vessels safely through former enemy territory. The Wisdom Keepers of Nexus 7 brought their advanced medical technology to the Alliance in exchange for protection from aggressive neighbors. Dr. Alex Rivera worked closely with Alterian scientists to establish the Alliance Science Institute. Human curiosity and Alterian knowledge proved to be a powerful combination. Within 6 months, they had developed new technologies that neither species could have created alone. General Ryan Brooks oversaw the training of the Alliance Defense Force, teaching officers from dozens of worlds how to fight using human tactics. The old way of warfare, with rigid formations and predictable strategies, was replaced by flexible thinking and adaptive combat techniques. The Vorthak Empire, meanwhile, retreated behind its own borders and stayed there. Word of their humiliating defeat had spread throughout the galaxy. Other aggressive civilizations took note and decided that perhaps conquering peaceful worlds was not as easy as they had thought. Captain Tony Mitchell led mixed squadrons of human and Alterian pilots in patrol missions along the Alliance border. The sight of human fighters flying alongside former enemies who had become friends sent a clear message to anyone who might threaten Alliance worlds. 1 year after the liberation of Alteria Prime, Admiral Carter received a priority message from the Outer Rim. Another distress call, this time from a species called the Harmony Builders, who were under attack by the Iron Claw Syndicate. She looked at the tactical display showing Alliance fleet positions. Human ships were stationed at strategic points throughout friendly space, ready to respond to any threat. Alterian vessels, now equipped with human weapons, patrolled key trade routes. Marine units from a dozen species trained together on Alliance bases. Communication, send a message to the Harmony Builders, Carter ordered. Tell them help is on the way. Then alert all Alliance fleets. We have another rescue mission. As the Alliance fleet jumped to hyperspace, carrying hope to another desperate civilization, Carter reflected on how much the galaxy had changed. The age of unchallenged aggression was over. Peaceful species no longer had to face extinction alone. Humanity had found its place among the stars not as conquerors, but as protectors. And the galaxy was a safer place because of it. Commander Thorne, now serving as the Alliance's Director of Refugee Services, stood beside Carter on the bridge. Admiral, do you think we can save them in time? Carter smiled grimly. Commander, we saved your people when everyone said it was impossible. The Iron Claw Syndicate is about to learn the same lesson the Vorthak did. In this galaxy, genocide has consequences. The ships of the Galactic Protection Alliance streaked through hyperspace toward another world in need, carrying with them the promise that no peaceful civilization would ever again face extermination alone.